Good evening. At this time, I will now call the meeting of the Brunswick County Board of Education to order, and order of business action item special meeting tonight, Phase 1 redistricting decision. At this time, I would ask you to stand with us, and Ms. Cook will give the invocation, after which Mr. Benton will lead us in the pledge.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this day, for this time. We thank you for all the preparations that have gone into this moment. We ask you to just give us wisdom and direction and guide us in all that we do tonight. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
With hands to our heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, Ms. Rutledge will share information with us regarding Edgelog transportation update.
Thank you, Ms. Milligan. As you know, after the December committee meetings, we selected 4 options for consideration for the board tonight, and staff had already entered into a contract with Edgelog to provide transportation evaluation for these 4 options. And immediately after the meeting, they were notified and sent electronic files, which were significant electronic files from both our transportation routes and GIS information from Cropper. So that's where the information comes from. And this is the information that we've received from them. Thank you, Jill. Okay. Brunswick County Schools has worked with Edgelog, with Cropper, who proposed various school attendance scenarios. The resulting changes affect Town Creek Middle School, or could affect Town Creek Middle School, Leland Middle School, Lincoln Elementary, Belleville Elementary, Town Creek Elementary, and possibly Bolivia. Edgelog's Transportation Impact Project. This project will provide assistance to us in assessing the transportation impact of various attendance line scenarios for the schools. Deliverables include data that will outline key transportation indicators to be used in determining which redistricting scenario to carry forward. And as I said earlier, Edgelog uses both the GIS data and a routing program that's used by North Carolina State Department of Instruction. So that will mesh up with our information once an option is selected and we go further down the road toward implementation. Project focus and assumptions. Well, elementary and middle school runs in the affected areas were, of course, looked at. Some EC runs were not looked at because they frequently change and they're small in number. So the combined runs that have both EC students and non-EC students, those routes were included in the study information. Town Creek Elementary and Middle were routed together. We gave them that assumption because we felt like that's going to be the most efficient, and they were placed on the same schedule as the high school, middle schools. Leland and North Brunswick continue to be routed together as they are now, and also we included students who currently ride the bus as continuing to do so, and students currently not riding the bus as not riding the bus. So those were kind of the parameters and the guidance that we gave Edgelog. Changes in routes, time, and mileage. Transportation impact points to the need for an additional 6 to 7 buses. So in order to implement any of these scenarios, we'll have to add additional buses to our fleet. Because an additional school provides the opportunity for many reassigned students to go to a school, we're assuming that that as we move people, that's all a negative, and in many cases, students will be going to a school that's closer to their home than a previous school, and so the overall time and mileage has decreased. There's not a significant difference among the 4 scenarios in overall route time of mileage, and overall student ride times are decreased or improved. The chart up here, what's important to note is the first yellow square as we go from left to right. Those there, it points to options 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is adding additional buses to the fleet. So 7 for number 1, 7 for number 2, 6 for number 3, 7 for number 4. And then the next, the third yellow block over, loaded miles. This is when kids are on the bus. So you'll see a block beside it that says deadhead miles. That's a driver ending at one point with no students and continuing for a second run with no students on board. So the important block here is loaded miles. So current is that's our current routes up in that area, and with option 1 we have 26 miles less. Option 2, 33 miles less. Option 3, 43 less. Option 4, 67 less. However, because we're adding buses to the fleet, there's an additional cost. That's the last column. Option 1 is $8,400. This is annual cost. Option 2, $9,300. Option 3, $17,000. Option 4, roughly $15,000. So all show a reduction in loaded miles, but the additional buses cause an increase in cost. Route times. Parents, as they should, they're concerned about how long the children are going to be on the bus. This slide shows a reduction pretty much overall in the amount of time students are on the bus in the loaded time column. So that is the third yellow column over. So for option 1, this is a daily total, 349 minutes a day, less time that students are on the bus. $4.99 for option 2, $5.43 for option 3, $5.15 for option 4. And let's see, total time in hours daily. If you add the loaded time plus your deadhead time out in the last column, deadhead time once again is not that important. I want you to understand the difference in the number. The important column there is loaded time. Student travel time comparisons. So in general, the trend is towards lower student ride times, as most of the time periods seeing increases are less than 25 minutes. So there are fewer stops, though, in each of the longer 25-minute ride time intervals. These charts, the gray is what we're doing today. The red is where, they're in 5-minute time blocks. So 5-minute time blocks are across the bottom. Number of students, each line is an increment of 100. So, in option 1, in the 0 to 5-minute ride time, as you can see in red, we have added students. If you go out to the other end, look at, for example, 66 to 70-minute ride time, then we have decreased students. So adding those additional buses, while there is the annual cost that I discussed earlier, it does decrease, take students off of longer bus rides. And that's 1 and 2. And 3 and 4 is sort of similar. Okay. So for scenario 1, and I don't think I said it the first. This information is not, these conclusions are not Sue Rutledge's conclusions. This information was sent to us. This is Edgelog's info, and I have not changed it. So scenario 1, travel times are shortened on the average, with more students having a ride time less than 20 minutes and fewer students experiencing ride times longer than 21. In scenario 2, a similar distribution, ride times decreasing on an average. There is an increase in the 31 to 35-minute ride time column. This is noteworthy because it's sort of the difference between 1 and 2. The result of the boundary for Town Creek Elementary now extending further east towards the boundary of the district by trading the southern section of Belleville's attendance boundary to Town Creek. The runs servicing it now have to travel significantly farther to service the students living out near River Road Southeast. The distributions below are again compared to show the slight bump on the 31 to 35 minute range. So what they're talking about there is that area that goes south. And Bobby Taylor,
Yes, sir.
would you point to that area, please?
Yes, ma'am, Mitch. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Southern Road.
Okay, and that area is right at the end of the line, right there where we go to Bolivia. And so we are there essentially already with our routes, and so it's easy for us to go into Bolivia. That's not on their report. That's Sue Rutledge's info right there. I wanted to give the difference. Scenario 4. The average has moved toward the 20-minute mark with smaller amounts of,
Excuse me.
I missed scenario 3, yeah. The average ride time for elementary students in 3 has now increased towards the 20-minute mark, with reductions actually occurring over the 16 to 15-minute range. The 6 to 15-minute range, excuse me. The longer ride times are reduced overall, with notable exceptions for both the 31-35 and the 56-60 ride time range. The reason for both of these changes are primarily because Town Creek Elementary's new boundary covers a significant amount of Belleville's eastern area, that being Mallory Creek, requiring additional bus runs to service and increasing run lengths. Belleville also gains a new area further west of its current boundary, which covered densely populated suburbs. Scenario 4, the average has moved toward the 20-minute mark, with smaller amounts of students now experiencing ride times less than 10 minutes. The reduction of ride times around the 11 to 15 range resulted from the zones traded between Lincoln, Belleville, and Town Creek. The areas traded are suburbs that required a couple changes to the shorter runs to accommodate. Another change that resulted from the boundary trading between Belleville and Lincoln is a small bump in the 56 to 60-minute ride time range, specifically as Belleville gained a dense suburban section to the north. Run loads and paths had to be rebalanced, lengthening runs in the southern part of its attendance zone. So there are trade-offs with transportation impact of various scenarios. In Edulog's view, scenario 1 performs the best for student ride times. The results are quite similar in transportation impact between the 4 scenarios may not be significant enough to outweigh other factors the board is considering. Transportation allotment is based, you all have asked about cost and the state's transportation formula. So transportation allotment is based on a budget rating, which in part is a measure of efficiency. Efficiency being how loaded are your buses, how long your deadhead miles, lots of factors. How many buses you're using. The budget rating determines the percentage of total eligible expenditures covered by state funds. In round numbers, our budget is $6 million. Each 1% budget rating equals $60,000. Adding 7 buses, the rating impact is 2%, so a loss of $120,000. That is for each scenario, and the $8,000, $7,000, $9,000 that I talked about earlier. Those are that essentially is the only difference between these, and so we will suffer some loss of efficiency by adding extra buses. However, we gave Edulog, we had to give them complete information, and by that we had to give them a complete fiscal year of operations in transportation. So, this calculated efficiency is based on our last full fiscal year. The current fiscal year, which we're in right now, we are already using five fewer buses than we were the year before. And so, what's that number really going to be? We don't know exactly until we get our efficiency rating. Yes, sir.
So if we're only using 5, if we're using 5 fewer buses, does that mean we only have to buy 2 buses? Where are those 5 buses?
That's correct. You're correct.
That's right.
So we don't have to buy 7 buses.
We're not going to have to buy buses at all. We have, well, let me go to the next thing.
I'm sorry.
We have banked credit, I will call it banked credit for lack of a better word, with transportation operations with DPI. So we're on the good side right now, 9 buses. And so we will request those however many buses, 7 buses. We may not need 7. We may have enough in our fleet to, but let's say
we're not buying any.
Right, we're not buying any.
At $90,000.
Yes. Edulog recommends that once a scenario is chosen, an implementation plan be developed. We're going to need their help doing that because of the timeline. I hope just looking at these numbers, I mean, this is so much detail. And then, so we'll have students changing schools. All that data's got to be input, and then they'll have to design new routes for us. we think the best way to do it the first time is to have them help us do it. Once the plan is known, runs, routes, and bell times can be optimized to improve efficiency. So what's optimizing bell times? Optimizing means changing a little bit, 10 minutes. We're doing that now at Cedar Grove. If we can stretch 10 minutes longer in between some schools, then we don't use as many buses, and we don't, of course, then we don't require as many drivers, and all that lowers your cost. And so, by just tweaking bell times a little bit, sometimes we can save ourselves a lot of money. So I'm making you aware of that now, because we will probably come to the board and ask for some of that. And that is all. I will take questions.
So the overall conclusion they made, even though it was minor information, one plan against another, was map 1, which is the same as Parker had recommended.
That's their preferred, yes, sir.
Had the least amount of cost as well, right, associated with it? Plus the ride times were the most efficient, so it had, yep, both of those were low.
Yeah. Lowest cost.
With those recommendations for map 1, I still have some concerns about this area here in relation to the time the kids are on the bus that we discussed the last time we met. I believe we said that's map 2, but
The same.
60 minutes. Is that the longest route in the north area, or is there longer routes than that?
The north area, that may be some of the longer ones.
So if that group of 17 kids, I believe there are there in map 1, who are assigned to go to Bolivia, I believe in map 1, if they were assigned back to Belleville, how would that affect your efficiency? I know you said that bus coming up from Bolivia on that side was not full.
Correct.
And that was part of the reason that, how do you think that would affect your efficiency rating not to do that?
Well, we would have to send 2 buses that area if we did it. If we left them in Belleville area, where we could now do it with 1. That would be one of the major changes.
It would add a bus coming down from that Belleville to pick
Yes.
them up.
Because we would have to send a high school, middle school to that area, and then we would have to send an elementary.
Okay.
Where
Well, what are you doing now? You're sending it now, right?
that's what we're doing now, yes.
So that wouldn't be a
Either
great change.
either 1 or 2 or 3 would take that away. It would just only send 1.
We realize that.
Yeah.
So how far does the Bolivia bus go now, Bobby?
It's right here.
Does it come to this road here?
Yes, sir. Right there in the lower green, one down, right there.
Right here?
Yes, sir.
It goes all the way to 133
Yes, sir.
Dawes Creek?
Yes, sir.
I think it'll add up.
There's no houses. I mean, where are you picking somebody up?
There are some,
There's somebody back in here.
and there's some on 133.
Oh, you are going, so you're going to 133 and turning right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. There's a couple, yeah.
Sue, what was their second choice for a plan? They gave 2 recommendations, what, a primary and a secondary?
First was number 1, and I think that number 3 was.
Number 3 was their
Proper.
second? Yeah, no.
No, Edge Law.
Edgelon. Number
Number
3,
3.
yeah. It's that,
Which is the same as Cropper's.
exactly the same property. And then so you're looking at $1,000 of extra cost according to the
And all
chart.
3 of those maps have those kids not going to Belleville anymore, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Option 1 is the only one with them going.
No,
Bolivia.
No, all three, all three,
No,
all
Bolivia.
three of it, the only one.
To Bolivia.
So how much does that increase their time by going to Bolivia versus where they're at now?
It decreases their time.
It decreases.
Yes. You can start, you can, if you were taking them home, you could take them home first and then go on down and take care of the other ones.
I got you. This, then with that in mind, I'll recommend map 1 as it stands.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Questions? Okay, so Mr. Lemon has made a motion. May I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Benton. Any opposed? Okay. All in favor, say aye. And any opposed? Got a little ahead of myself. Okay. So with that said, it appears that option 1 with leaving those students
Just leave it just like it is.
just like it is. Okay. So let's rephrase that so everybody's on the same page. Option 1 as presented. Okay. So that is the decision. We have selected option 1 as presented based on all the information that we have in our midst to make a selection from.
Make a motion, we
Motion? Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Thank you.
So how many